It's welcome everyone. It's Monday, June 24th at 4 p.m. and it's our monthly meeting of the Carson City Culture and Tourism Authority. We're at the Sierra Room at the Community Center. So we've called to order. Can I get a roll call, Linda?
Trish Trenoweth.
Here.
Mike Riggs.
Here.
Mike Jones.
Here.
Mike Santos.
Here.
Stacy Giomi. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Can we get everyone to stand for the pledges of allegiance, please? Thank you. At this time, I'll invite any public comment. You can comment on anything that's relevant to this meeting and to this board. Seeing no public comment, we'll move on for possible action to approve the minutes of the May 13th, 2019 CTA board meeting. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? No, hearing none, motion passes. Adoption of the agenda, item 6. I don't see any reason to move it around.
Chair Jones, there's a second, sorry. Yeah. We have to approve the minutes for the May 21st meeting.
Okay, I'm sorry. If I get a motion to approve the May 22nd.
I move to approve the Convention and Tourism Authority meeting, May 21st meeting minutes.
Forgot we had 2 in May. Can I-
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, anybody see any reason to change the agenda up and the way it's posted? If not, we're going to move along with is it as it is. Item 7, discussion and possible action regarding a proposed sponsorship agreement with Bike Monkey for the Peter Satinas Carson City Pay Dirt Prospect Ride for a total amount of $69,000 and to authorize the CTA Executive Director to sign the agreement. David, do you want to start off?
Thank you, Chair Jones. For the record, David Peterson, Executive Director with the Carson City Culture and Tourism Authority. With us today is Carlos Perez, the Founder and Chief Officer of Bike Monkey, who is the event promoter, and he's going to walk us through sort of a presentation, a little bit of background on the event, as well as the plans for this event. The sponsorship agreement is a little different than what we have in place right now with Epic Rides. This is a sponsorship agreement, and this puts us in position to be the marketing entity to help assist with Bike Monkey to put this event on. So with that, I'm going to ask Carlos to come up and walk us through his presentation.
Okay, thanks, David. And thanks you guys for taking time to listen to kind of the idea that we have. So I'm the founder of Bike Monkey. We're an event production company based out of Santa Rosa, California. And we started in 2005, primarily organizing mountain bike races. And then we branched out and started organizing road and mixed terrain events. And so we kind of cover the whole spectrum of different types of events that you would ride your bike in, mostly competitive, some non-competitive. And in fact, our largest non-competitive event is Levi's Grand Fondo. And in 2009, when we started that ride, we opened it to 3,500 participants, and it filled up right away. And has since grown to become America's largest mass participation road cycling event. So in Santa Rosa, we bring 1,000 or 5,000 people each year. Obviously big economic impact with something like that. It's something that really has put us kind of on the forefront of these types of events, road and off-road events. And so we organize these things in different areas. Santa Rosa, Willits, California, we have a really special mountain bike race that takes place up there. Truckee Dirt Fondo, which we're going into our second year with now. And Sagan Fondo. So these are some of our successful events. I'll kind of touch on those in a little while. we, I first came to Carson City actually because of the Epic Rides mountain bike race in, I think it was 2016 was the first year that they had it. I'm a mountain bike racer myself. And we have some friends who live over off of Carson River, and we're super excited by just the vastness of the roads that are out there in the Pine Nut Mountains. And so at the time I started exploring just kind of on maps and inquiring as to, what is actually out there. And it turns out that there's a lot of BLM land and a lot of fire roads that make it conducive to, a really cool gravel event. Kind of my point there is that I came to Carson City because of the Epic Rides event, and I've been back every year since to participate. I'm going to be here racing next weekend as well. And I bring my family out, so my wife and my kids and a couple of friends, and we usually get a place here, a couple hotel rooms. And it's funny because it's the influencers for me to come out and participate in this event are not just me. This year I was kind of waffling as to whether or not I was going to come back and race, and it was my daughter and my son who were like egging me on, like they want to come back to Carson City. So through kind of being exposed to this region more than once, they've found some fun things to do. And I think that's really when we partner with a municipality with our events, that's what we really try to focus on, is what is there that's fun to do, because our events become successful when the influencers, my wife and my kids, are the ones that are hoping that I'll choose to come and race at a particular place. That's the same case in Santa Rosa. When we organize an event there, we have a lot of family-oriented activities to try and get the influencers to force mom or dad to make a decision to actually go to a place, because there are so many events to choose from. As a racer, if I want to go and race, I could go 5 different places on a given weekend. And so the influencers and why we came back, the things that they do when I'm out racing my bike is they're going to the train museum, the kids museum, which they pretty much go to every single time we come here. They go bowling, they play on the Carson River. So they go down and, water's ice cold. It feels awesome when it's really hot in the summertime here. And so they go down there a bunch. They usually take a day trip and go up to Virginia City. And then, of course, during the race, before and after, there's a bunch of stuff to do downtown. And so, there's always something for them to do, and they're really into that. One of the other draws to Carson City is that I think it's not a place that I was familiar with before the Epic Off-Road Series took place. And me and Todd know each other, and, we share a lot of the same audience. So a lot of people do his events, and a lot of the same people will come and do our events, and they're like back to back. And one of the things that we've discovered is it really is like the place that will cause that to happen. And so it's in Carson City, that place is this amazing vista for me. And what really drew me into the Pine Nut Mountains to look at that as an opportunity was how beautiful it is. And I don't know if it's one of those places that I think it's hard. It's a lot of work to get out there, because some of these roads just go and go and go and go, but they go into this vastness that I think a lot of people don't really know about. And I discovered that when I went out there many times. I came out for several trips, and one of the things that I found was that you can go out there and turn the truck off, and you can sit there for 2 hours and you will not see a soul. And that's a really special experience as a cyclist, to be able to get on a road and go and be competing in a place where you're not going to see any traffic. You stop, you're just going to be in solitude. And so that it lends our idea of creating a gravel event here some real uniqueness, and something that I think really creates a selling point for Carson City. These are some of those events I mentioned earlier. These are some of the ones that we're known for as being larger. The Truckee Dirt Fondo, in its second year, we had to reschedule due to snow, which even Todd's obviously suffering from some of the challenges that Mother Nature's thrown at us this past year. And so our numbers for that event are the same as they were last year. We were trending towards 1,200 participants, but with the reschedule and losing Peter Sagan to that particular event, we had to change it. Our expectation is that thing's going to grow really fast, because gravel cycling events are actually the fastest growing segment in cycling by a huge margin right now. You've got Dirty Kansas, which draws over 2,000 participants. The Lost and Found Gravel Series up in Quincy area draws 1,600 participants this past year. This event, because of Truckee and the location, the fact that people go there on a regular basis for things that are fun to do, is going to be over 1,000 people next year. Levi's Grand Fondo, which I mentioned, is our largest. We cap it at 5,000 because we want to guarantee that the experience the participants are having is positive. And then Sagan Fondo is another similar event to Levi's Grand Fondo, which features professional cyclist Peter Sagan. Wente's capped at 600 participants. That's a mountain bike race. And so, like I said, we have a spectrum. We've got a gravel race, we've got 2 road events, we've got mountain bike races. Those are not all of our events. We organize about 20 events a year. These are the ones that we feature most prominently. The Levi's Grand Fondo event's effect in our community in Sonoma County, so over its 10-year history, we're going on our 11th year, we've raised $3.2 million for King Ridge Foundation, which is our at-risk youth nonprofit. And so that's usually associated with all of the events that we produce. The exception in Carson City would be that our focus is more on active outdoor charities, so High Fives Foundation, the organizations here that maintain the trails is somebody that we've worked with in the past because of the Sierra Prospect road ride that came through, and we helped, or they helped us organize an aid station for that. So our charity shifts a little bit to focus on more regional charities, and that kind of goes with every event that we do. We try to put a focus on the region, not necessarily our own charity, but with some of our larger events, King Ridge Foundation, we have a real draw to at-risk youth. We've created $27 million in visitor spending in Santa Rosa over 10 years just with Levi's Grand Fondo, and that's the number of visits. So that's just an example of our largest scale event, and those numbers tend to scale with the events that we produce. So Truckee, same thing, just smaller scale.
How do you measure that spending?
We worked closely with the Economic Development Bureau in Sonoma County and ran it through InPlan software. And so it's a combination of our event participation, what they're spending, the lodging, room nights that are generated. So we do a survey both during and after the event, and we poll our participants on exactly where they stayed, how many nights did they stay, how many people did they bring, did they eat at a restaurant, how much did they spend on lodging, how much did they spend on groceries. So all of that stuff goes into InPlan, and then we're able to produce a number that does a really good job of approximating the total impact on the economy. And so in Sonoma County, we can get real granular with that. Not every municipality uses the same process for it. So in Truckee, for instance, we work with their tourism bureau to collect data from survey respondents. And so we do 3 follow-ups. In the beginning, we ask them to tell us how many nights they stayed when they pick up their packet. So we get 100% answer on that. Did they spend a night? How many nights? How many people did they bring with them? And then we do follow-up surveys that ask some more detailed questions about how much did they spend at these various places. And we're able to get pretty good numbers on that.
And these are surveys that volunteers, I guess, for your group?
The surveys are done, so as a participant, you have to pick up your packet and put a number plate on your bike. And so when you do that, before we hand you your packet, we have you answer those questions, and then it's all added up at the end. And then we do a follow-up survey by email 3 times to make sure that we get as many answers as possible. And that's a mix of economic-related questions and experiential questions. You know, did they have a good time? Was there something that we did wrong? How can we make it better? And so I can get into a little bit of that too towards the end of the presentation on ways that we integrate, because it's a little different from one municipality to the next. You guys may have specific questions that you want to ask participants, and we take those questions verbatim usually and just put them right in there so that we can get that data for you.
Great.
Pine Nut Mountains. So this is the area that we've been exploring, and it's for us, it's enlightening because we have had this name pay dirt and prospecting the region for, in the event name. And the experience that we've had out here has truly been like, we've been prospecting. We've been driving these roads for months now, looking for the perfect route and blown away by the scenery and driving and finding the perfect road and then find that, oh, it doesn't go anywhere. We have to choose a different route. And so a lot of effort has gone into the design of the actual route itself. And ultimately, this is what we have come up with as the perfect off-road event out here, one that allows people to use a true gravel bike and not have to take a mountain bike and be able to see some incredible scenery. This is the long route as proposed right now, and we've been in rough communications with BLM on the access restrictions and time frame for getting the permit completed, just so that we have that data point, so that if we get a green light to proceed in producing the event, we know exactly who we're talking to and what the process is for getting the permits completed. And so we found a lot of really cool stuff out there. Yeah, sure.
Can we go back? Where does that start? Where's the northern end of that?
So there's actually, I don't really have a pointer, but it's a little bit of a figure eight. So it starts at Edmonds. Oh, cool, thanks. So I'm gonna point at this one over here. So, well, it's not gonna work on the screen. Nice try. Edmonds Sports Complex is the location that we're looking at
Where
for
that purple, like, sort of rectangle is?
Yeah, kind of like right near town.
Okay.
And so starting and finishing there, we start by going north out Fairview and then south to the Sierra Vista Lane. And then when we get to Sierra Vista Lane, we actually go north and up through, there's a neighborhood there, and then we go up a gravel road and down into Brunswick Canyon Road. Then we take Brunswick Canyon Road south, and that's that first long southbound section. And then we'll get to Sunrise Pass Road. And the long course will take a left and head east on Sunrise Pass Road, and then south on, and I can't remember the name of this southernmost road here. And then once they get down in that area, they're gonna come back west and then head north. And through a couple neighborhoods. By the time they get there, cyclists are really spread out. I mean, they're just like, these roads are gonna eat them up. So it's gonna be a really tough ride. They'll be coming back that way, back over and through Sierra Vista Lane area. And then we've inquired with a property owner that owns or represents the home ownership between the Carson River area to the north, where Saddle Ranch, what's the name of the ranch that's there?
Silver Saddle.
Silver Saddle Ranch. And Edmonds on the southern part, to request easement for the event for cyclists to come through there, and the initial conversations were positive that they would approve that for us. And that allows us to finish on dirt without having to impact a highly populated neighborhood area.
So a lot of it is in Douglas County. I mean, the majority of the routes in Douglas County.
Yep, we're in 2 different counties, so we don't get into Washoe. We stay below that, I believe. So yeah.
Yeah, you're definitely below Washoe.
Yeah, so Carson for everything, due east, and then Douglas County.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
You said you've been working with BLM. How about any tribal lands?
No, we haven't yet. There's one area to the south here that we have identified as tribal land, and we haven't had the conversation with them yet about permission to come through that area. Until we sit with BLM, and because the detail on this map doesn't necessarily show every border. Until we sit with BLM and get into detail, we don't know exactly where those tribal lands are and who we need to contact to discuss that with. But I've been in discussion with the Visitors Bureau about how we can be in that conversation. Our hope is that we can find a way to benefit anyone that's being impacted. So if it's a tribal land easement or request that we're going through there, that we have the conversation with them to say, look, we have an event that's taking place that's coming through your area. Is there an interest in either a donation or some sort of involvement with the event? That kind of goes with our vision for all of our events, is to try and put a focus on giving back to the communities that are impacted in some way. It really helps us to ensure the longevity of an event when we have buy-in from everybody. I don't want to come in and just try to force something to happen. I don't have expectations that people are going to be all right with cyclists riding through their property. Some people just don't like it. And I understand that. And so it's a conversation that has to happen to find out where we'll be able to go through and be welcome and accepted. The hope is that these shouldn't present an issue because there's OHV traffic happening on these roads at all times. And every road that we've driven, where there's people out there on razors, there's people out there recreating. And so that's our approach first, is that it should be acceptable. However, there may be private property issues that when it comes to an event, that there may be at very least some indemnifications that need to be issued, and some certificates of insurance. Beyond that, we're open to the conversation of like, well, you guys are having a commercial event. Maybe you can make a donation to this thing that we're passionate about. And on a show of good faith, we would absolutely entertain that. And so that's kind of our approach to any of these areas that are not BLM. I kind of talked about that a little bit already, is sort of our vision and that unique flavor that we try to create with the events that we produce, and partnering with the local agencies and building that mutual benefit. Because for us, I don't want to come out here and put a bunch of energy and effort into building an event when there isn't mutual buy-in, because it'll happen for 1, 2, or 3 years, and then everybody says, that's it, we're done, we don't want to do this anymore. We want to build 10, 20-year events. We want something that's really, really has buy-in, that really does something for the community.
Well, and that kind of goes with part of my question is we want to make sure that, or if we're going to put money towards an event, that we've got all those details covered.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of a dance there for us too, right? I don't want to go and start going through the permitting process of creating an event without everyone's buy-in first. And so I feel we're very early in the communication process of making sure that we have everything in place for us to then move forward with the permitting. Because we're going to have to start spending real revenue on the permitting process and the map development and the trips back and forth to make sure that we can actually pull it off. So sometimes we'll go to a municipality, and we've had this happen before, where we've gone in and started the planning process, and then somebody goes, well, wait a minute, you didn't think about us first. And so for us, the natural starting point is always a visitors bureau. Once there's an interest in buy-in from the visitors bureau, everything else is the technical details of building the route, finding the property owners, getting the permission to go through. And so, our request obviously is contingent on us actually producing an event, right? We have to produce an event, and that's our objective. I spoke about this earlier. This slide's a little bit out of order, but these are just clippings from all of the news articles from 2 different prominent publications that are just talking about gravel events this past year. We've never seen this before with any discipline of cycling, and there's usually a shift in what everybody's doing every 10, 15 years. There's like something that creates a lot of gravity. The gravel thing is insane. It's really amazing to see, and I think it's really cycling kind of going back to its roots of pure adventure, because a lot of people come out to do these events and they're not doing it to compete. They're doing it because they get to go out and ride their bike in areas that are vast and remote. And that's what our survey feedback gave us when we produced the Truckee Dirt Fondo, is people are raving about the beauty, of what they saw. They're just a little bit interested in their times, but most people aren't going to podium. You get 1,600 people to come out to an event. Most of them are just there for the experience. They're not there to compete. And so the experience has to feature something that's really unique and special. And that's why these events are getting so big. So I talked about our searching and trying to figure stuff out. We started a couple years ago, the conversation with the Visitors Bureau, and it's just been an ongoing conversation as we have just explored and looked at the potential of having a ride out here. And so it's got a lot of character, but it's beautiful, And so I I take pictures when we're out there riding, and every time I see a beat up truck, it kind of, for me, is like a little bit of the flavor of what this place is like. It's very vast, remote, kind of unchecked, kind of, it's rough. And for a participant, you know, some people might be like, oh my God, that's not the face of Carson City that we want to share or show with people. And that's not really the face that we're showing, but these kind of things out in the wild like that do give you a sense of actually how like deep you are, like how far away from you know, organized civilization you are. And to be able to have something like that adjacent to a bustling municipal community is very unique, and it really is special. And I think it's something that really creates a true resource for exploring out there. And so what we actually found, and the real reason why this place draws us so much, is the sheer beauty of it. And it's roads like this, in this time of year, you know, May, springtime basically is what we're talking about doing. Like late spring, early summer is the ideal time frame for this event, because there's still moisture in the soil, there's green, there's snow on the peaks, and it's just vast and beautiful. And when people ride their bikes and they're left with an impression like that, which is what they're gonna see on this route, they'll never forget it. You know, most places that you're riding your bike, you're not gonna see landscapes like this, because you're not in the high desert. There aren't very many events. There's only one that I know of. It's Rebecca's Private Idaho, and it draws 1,200 participants to Ketchum, which isn't an easy place to get to. And they've been doing that for 6 years now. And it's just this vastness that really is gonna pull people in. The guy walking his bike across the creek is Levi Leipheimer. He's an ex-professional cyclist, 3-time winner of the Amgen Tour of California, stage winner of the Tour de France, a close personal friend. And I took these guys out there and we rode some of this stuff, and they just had their minds blown. And when they post something about the ride that they're doing, these guys who will be doing this event, you know, they've got like 30, 40,000 followers on Strava. And so we created this initial buzz just by going out there and riding it, and people are very excited about it because it's something new and unheard of. And we like to have a little bit of fun with stuff too, so I'm gonna play with some pictures there. But these guys had a really good time, and you know, we really found what we were looking for. So our request for sponsorship and our approach to this is to ask for sponsorship. Because whenever we come into a municipality like this, we're not just out in the middle of nowhere in the sticks throwing a party by ourselves in the woods and camping. There are going to be real costs incurred that are relative to where we're at. And so in Carson City and the region that we're looking at, we've kind of built our sponsorship request in this way. And that sponsorship request builds something of mutual benefit, whereas Carson City is sponsoring the event to bring an audience and to present that audience and try to capitalize on that as much as possible. And so we interlace a lot of these touch points with the Visitors Bureau. So I mean, the first thing obviously is you guys want to get heads in beds. And there are a lot of ways that we can help to ensure that, working closely with your team to build in lodging opportunities, group rates, or whatever it may be, to encourage people to book at the time that they register, because we can build that process into our registration system. It's harder to get someone to pull out their credit card a second time. And so if it's just kind of one fell swoop process, it does increase the lodging nights. And I talk about some of those things in this next slide, actually, I think. I just touch on the impacts too, because a lot of times that's an issue or something that needs to be addressed. And so the placement of where we want to have the ride, the impacts in the morning, we would need some road closures for about 30 minutes while we got everybody out of town and out of the busier parts, but we're really on the very eastern edge, so it should be minimal. On the way back, when people are coming back, they're so spread out that we're not going to be really holding traffic at that point. There's going to be a couple intersections where we'll have marshals controlling bikes and making sure that they stop when there's traffic coming, and then continuing when it's clear. But there's very little traffic at these intersections, and there's good visibility. So that should be easily managed and not too much of an impact. As opposed to other events that we've organized, like Levi's Grand Fondo, where we're hiring 60 CHP officers and we're closing roads for, hours at a time. And, there's a big return for the city of Santa Rosa, but there's also some edginess with the residents because the impacts are so long. Wouldn't be the case with this particular event, even at 12 or 1,500 people. So participation, we're targeting 400 to 600 people annually, potentially a lot more. Like I said, the gravel scene's really exploding. We had more than that at Truckee, and we expect that to be over 1,000 people next year, just based on the experience and the vibe that they're having. We can't guarantee how many people are going to come to Carson City, but what we can do is really paint that picture and that experience for Carson City and hope that the event that we're creating is seen as a similar experience to all of the other events that we create. We have a very loyal participant following, and I think that people will definitely choose to come here when they see how unique and different the experience is compared to everything else that they've participated in. And that's what really creates the opportunity, is that it sets itself apart. It's not just another Truckee Dirt Fondo in another place. It's a very different place. Deep touch points with Carson City. So again, when our participants come to the site, they're presented with all the information that they need about lodging opportunities. When they register, there's an opportunity to build something into that registration process. There's an opportunity to build follow-up emails. There's an ability to build in opt-ins. It's an open book, and we can work very closely with Carson City to make sure that you're getting as many touch points with the participant as possible, because that's what's going to help generate lodging. Probably been over 15 minutes, and I'm sure you guys probably have some more questions, so we can talk about those. There's just a list of some partnerships. I touched on those already as well, and I think everybody has this presentation with them too.
Thank you. Very thorough presentation. Questions from the
I have
board?
a question. So the route, a lot of it is in Douglas County. Are you working with them as well, or has this been strictly with the Carson City Visitors Bureau?
It's been strictly with the Carson City Visitors Bureau, because with Douglas County, it would be an encroachment permit. And we've done an encroachment permit in the past with Douglas County, and it's very straightforward. We just present them with the route and the detail on our security requirements, aid station requirements and emergency requirements. And it's just been a stamp and very straightforward. If we're not closing roads in Douglas County, usually there isn't an issue there.
So you're looking to make more the base of it Carson City than both areas?
Yes, yeah.
Tricia, yeah, this is definitely, it's a Carson City event. I mean, cut and dried. People are staying here, we're basing out of the Pete Livermore complex. But in order to make the route happen, yes, we do have to cross over into Douglas County. But yeah, it's definitely a Carson City event. But at some point, once we get through this process, should you as the board agree and approve me to move forward to work with Carlos on this, I will definitely reach out to Jan Vandermeer down at the Carson Valley CBB. So he knows what's going on as well, to see if he wants to come in on any level. But right now, we're just here working through the Carson City process.
Anyone else? Any questions?
I wouldn't, I mean, it sounds like you've worked with Douglas County. Looking at that route, I wouldn't underplay the amount of work that you're gonna have in Douglas County. Because the vast majority of that route is not in Carson, it's in Douglas County. And you're gonna have to contend with law enforcement and emergency services, and they're gonna have an impact on that. And I guess I just have a little bit of a concern about that without speaking to the municipalities. And so my question, I guess, is for our staff. the payment is August 1st. So how do we, what assurances do we have we make that payment by August 1st if the event doesn't happen? Because permitting doesn't happen, because the permitting requirements from either Carson City or Douglas County are so onerous that it doesn't pencil out. If you're making a payment by August 1st, I don't know that you're going to know in a little over 5 weeks whether the event is going to happen. So that's the concern I have. Does someone have a comment to that?
Yeah, this is Dave Peterson for the record. We could definitely look at shifting back the year one payment and make it contingent, if Carlos would agree, upon all the permitting being in place. I don't see an issue with that if Carlos is open to that.
Yeah, I
For at
mean,
least this first year.
yeah, if you guys wanted to amend that and say that as early as August 1st contingent on the permits, which the process will take longer than that. And then once we have the permits in place, then that payment could be due.
And the payment's broken into 3 years, right? 20,
Yeah, there's
3,000.
payment per fiscal year. Yeah, not all up front, but, so we would just adjust this first one, because, correct me if I'm wrong, once we get the permitting in place for year one, should be sort of cookie cutter to come back and do years 2 and 3?
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, if the board would agree to making that change, I think that would be
Okay.
perfect.
And then can we go back a couple of slides to the request for sponsorship slide? What does bullet point 2 mean?
Okay, so if I came to you and I said, I'm going to produce this event, and in that process, municipal, Public Works, for instance, says, okay, but you need to put out changeable message signs 2 weeks in advance, and they need to be at this location and this location. Those costs vary so much from one municipality to the next, and sometimes they're not required and sometimes they are. It's impossible for us to build that into our budget. And so that's why we put those requirements back on the host town or host city, so that, because we could come here and you guys might tell us you have to spend $50,000 on notifications and signage and traffic control and all of these things. In spite of our best efforts to inform people and mitigate those things, it would kill the event. And so that's to protect us, and also to make sure that there's an understanding that those costs being mandated by, whether it's Carson City, was Carson City basically, like.
Or Douglas County?
Or Douglas County. Douglas County is going to be different because we're not going to have traffic closures in Douglas County. So I don't anticipate huge expenses there.
And so where is that, Dave, addressed in this?
So it's not in the agreement that you have in front of you. That's actually going to be inside the interlocal, the 2% agreement that we're working on for fiscal 2021. We have it on the endorsed list in events, and I've been talking to Jen about that as it relates to everything Parks and Rec. So it'll function as like a softball tournament or a soccer tournament. We'll have those costs come out of that 1%, the 1% of the 2% in the interlocal agreement. That's the plan, is to include it there. And it's actually already in, like I said, the Exhibit A for the endorsed events list. We did specify.
For the current agreement between the CTA and the city?
Yes.
So.
Well, not the current one, but the
Well,
one that'll come up, yeah.
Right, the proposed
Yeah,
one.
The proposed
That's what I
one,
meant.
yes, that's
The
correct.
current proposed one is what I meant to say.
The current proposed one coming.
So
yeah.
in that scenario, okay. So I guess I'm going back to expending funds and then Bike Monkey coming back and saying Carson City's asking for 50,000 worth of stuff, or more than we're willing to put forward or more than the agreement covers. If there's not an out in here, we've already paid them for the money, and then they're not gonna do an event because of something that, and I'm less concerned, quite honestly, about Carson City than I am more concerned about BLM, quite frankly, Douglas County, and BIA. I think those are bigger unknowns. It sounds like you've worked with BLM before. I don't know if you worked with Indian Lands or Bureau of Indian Affairs. Things don't move rapidly there. And often requirements that they place are oddly onerous. And I'm just, so I'm concerned about that as you get a permit in place, and I don't even know that they have technically a permitting process per se at the BIA level. And you come back and you say the cost is too high and you can't do it. So those are the concerns. If you feel like what we have here allies those concerns, I'm willing to go along with it, but
I've been doing events for, 15 years now, and nothing in my experience in working with different landowners and agencies leads me to believe that our experience with Douglas County is going to be a major surprise to us. Most of the expense for all of our events, I would say 95% of our total event expenditure is going to be tied to the start-finish venue area, the host, because that's where we're going to have the majority of any traffic control, planning, engineering expenses, permitting, encroachment, notification, indemnifications, and insurance coverages all have to happen there. Once riders get out into an open space, the worst case scenario that we've ever faced was a 5% of gross receipts, which was easily built into the registration fee for the event.
okay, well,
that's-
that's good to know.
That's typical.
Yeah. Okay.
Stacy, would you like to see something added to the termination section in the agreement beyond what's in section 5? Some more specific language to address the permitting piece?
I think if we have the cost, that cost component, incorporating that, where did the screen go? Incorporating that language,
I can,
that's okay. Incorporating that language, cash contribution, in addition to cash contributions, seeks municipal support in the form of including coverage for all mandated outlays to produce the event. I think we should have something in there about the local and federal governments' outlays being agreed upon between Bike Monkey and the CTA before we release the payment. I think that's reasonable, because then the municipalities and the governments can evaluate what those costs are. And you can decide whether they're reasonable costs or not, and we can decide whether we can accept them. And BLM in Nevada has, because of Burning Man, they're very in tune in the state of Nevada to impacts on their lands, probably more so than a lot of areas. So I don't want us to give away money for nothing. I like the event. I love the event. I just don't want us to give away money for nothing. So.
Ben Johnson, Deputy District Attorney for the record. In Section 5, we did include kind of a broad language where the CTA can terminate the agreement when it determines that it's in the public interest. We thought that would incorporate things like that you're talking about where, they fail to obtain certain permits or permissions, but we can go ahead and tighten up that language just to make it clear that money won't be released prior to obtaining all the necessary permissions and approvals.
Yeah, I think that's part one, and I appreciate that. 180 days is not, it's a lot of time. But I think the other part is, as I just said, those additional contributions, or municipal support, or government support, I should say, whether it be local or federal, I think needs to be in place before we release the payment. So I don't know if you captured that. I could play with it here for a second if you want me to in terms of incorporating the language, or do you feel like you captured what I said.
I feel good,
Okay.
unless you have something very specific.
No,
but
no,
feel
I don't.
good. Okay.
I would agree. I think it needs to be spelled out a little clearer, and I think, David, you understand and where the board is
Yeah.
heading towards. It's
And
just
it-
a safeguard.
It's just a broad comment, not related to this event, but don't we just standard put non-appropriation clauses into our agreements? So that isn't in here directly, that's not in here. I mean, Section 5 termination, I guess, could include it, but it seems to me that we should, as a governmental entity, a non-appropriation clause we should never have a contract where money goes out where we don't have a non-appropriation clause. Sorry for taking all that time, I apologize.
All right, anything else? Any Any other board members have any comments?
I think,
No?
I think the event is, if it
No?
goes off, is gonna be awesome.
No, I think it's a great event, and it highlights an area of our region that people don't know about, or people don't go out there a lot that come to Carson. So I think it's, no, I'm very pleased with it, a good presentation. All right, moving forward then, can I get a motion to approve
Yeah,
the executive
I'll
director?
take a stab at it. First, if I could just, I appreciate you coming here. I hope you didn't hear my comments as being against this event, because I'm absolutely not. I just am trying to be a good fiscal steward of our money, and so I appreciate it, and I appreciate you taking the effort to bring it to our community. I move to approve the sponsorship agreement, CTA-SA-20-01 with Bike Monkey, Inc., with the inclusion of language that, in Section 3, that will limit payment in 2020 event year contingent upon obtaining all government permits. And with additional language that will also withhold 2020 and subsequent year payments until all local governments are satisfied in terms of financial support. Did that get it, Dave, the way I said it before?
I think so.
So that's my motion.
Can I get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carlos. Let's move on to item 8 on the agenda for presentation only, marketing update from KPS 3. Welcome.
While they get set up, Chair Jones, I'll introduce the team from KPS 3. So we have CEO Rob Gatke, Vice President of Client Strategy Andy Walden, and Vice President of Public Relations Chrissy Abu. So they're going to be, thank you, Carlos, be presenting an update as to where we're at in the discovery phase. We're going to talk a little bit about PR and the website as well, but I don't want to steal their thunder since they took the time to come down from Reno to give us an update here as a board. So with that, I'll be quiet.
All right, Rob Gadke, CEO of KPS3 for the record. First of all, thanks for having us. It's been a whirlwind of a past month and some change here, getting to know everything that this great city has to offer. So our goal for today is to share a little bit about what we've already been started and doing, which is Chrissy's role here. Then dig into an update on the discovery status, where we stand, what our sort of completed items are, and where we're going next. And then talk about the next steps for completing all of our projects like we said we would. So let's move forward here with the May PR report and talk about some stuff that's already been completed.
Chrissy Yahweh, VP of PR. I did want to give you an update of where we are with our interim program until our plan is done later this summer. There is some low-hanging fruit that we wanted to attack out of the gate, and naturally, some of our summer events was where we started with just some PR pushes, some very simple things, press release distribution, focusing on some key events this summer. We started with the Carson City Ghost Walk, and then we worked on Brewfest. A little bit of Transcontinental Railroad is going to happen now that we've received approval on a new release from Dan, Taste of Downtown. And then we are going to be posting a blog post monthly on the website. The first one was on the off-road. So it's been very successful, just the little bit of push that we've done so far. We've hit a couple of websites regionally, have some coverage on a press release distribution site. We've worked with Travel Nevada's content team, just making sure that content is up to date on their site for that added distribution. And we worked with a co-op opportunity with Argentum partners and the V&T Railroad on a FAM with Simply Real Moms out of San Francisco for the Mother's Day train ride, as well as some other fun experiences that they've explored in Carson City. So to date, we have received a publicity value of $7,800 in terms of this May report. Publicity value, just so you know, is equivalent to the story length, the type of media that it appears in, and the number of impressions in that story. And typically what media monitoring services like the ones we use do measure is publicity value. So it gives you a sense of your return on investment. In addition to that, I am happy to say that in conjunction with Lydia's efforts with social media, blogging, and PR, that it's a good starting point for us as we work into our plan for the year. I want to give some highlights of what's coming next without stealing Lydia's thunder too much, but some other things are happening in the works, such as this week, we're working with a FAM with Kate Courtney and Brad Copeland for the off-road. Kate Courtney is the UCI mountain bike world champion and World Cup Series leader. So her and Brad are going to be on a FAM this weekend exploring not just the event, but other things as well. So they're really interested in tacos. So they're going to be, as part of their package, working on some blog posts, some social media Instagram stories, and things of that nature. So off to a good start and excited to move forward.
All right, any questions on the public relations elements? As you know, we've hit the ground running here. There's a lot of discovery and prep work that needs to happen. However, with the public relations effort, we were able to just get that rolling kind of in the meantime. But with no other additional questions on public relations, I'll get into the discovery status and kind of cover some of our process to date. So essentially what we set off to do is lay a foundation, right? We want to make sure that everything that we do from a marketing, from a website perspective and a PR and content perspective is based on a foundation of strategy. And so I know this process takes a little bit of time. However, it does ensure if we do this right, that we can move very quickly for the following stages. So part of our dual contract with the PR and content and web contract is that we can combine these efforts together so that we have one discovery session, gives us efficiencies, make sure that all sides of the marketing engine are talking to each other. And so we've done our analytics and our social audit. We've conducted our stakeholder interviews as well as 10 additional. Those are all complete. Our findings are tallied, and our assessment to get into the full document once we have a full findings document is well underway, way over halfway done. The other piece I wanted to talk about here is that some of our coming research element, so a competitive assessment. Now that we have all of the data from our interviews, we can craft our story when we come here and experience all of the areas that folks talked about. So that's underway. And then our content and consumer insight survey that I know David has in the works. So those are our remaining pieces. But before I turn it over, any questions on process so far? Okay, perfect. So I'm going to let Andy actually talk about some meat that we have found on the bones here.
Cool. Andy Walden, VP of Client Strategy. So with this, I think we're really interested, as David mentioned, or will be mentioning a little bit more about the destination analyst's role in being able to develop a consumer survey. It'll be great to match what we see currently with some of the input that the stakeholders also had shown. So with that, the first thing we did was jumped in the web analytics side. And so we did see quite some interesting things here. So just to give context though, we wanted to pull a full year snapshot. And so we only could pull that from November 17th through October 18th. The reason being is that the web analytics went down recently for about a month and a week. And so we wanted that full snapshot. And from that, we also learned, as you can kind of see the traffic below, that seasonality really isn't a thing in terms of how people are visiting the site today. I generally see with travel and tourism, you do have a little bit of fluctuation of people that will ramp up in the summer. It'll then go down on the shoulder seasons. And so eventually, hopefully we'll see a little bit more seasonality on the site. But right now, it is flat. It is actually trending up, but you can't really, if you look at this right now, you can't tell summer from winter. So with that, overall traffic is trending up. Engagement, I do see is relatively low. I would like to see pages per session closer to 2 and above. And then the bounce rate being closer to 70%, I'd like to see that lower. And I do feel that there's definitely opportunity to get people, when they visit the site, to a next step. Organic is your number one leading channel. People are searching for Carson City. They're searching for Kit Carson Trail. They are searching for things such as that to get to the site. And then we did see 20% came from direct. However, I do want to put the caveat on that because when we took a little bit more investigation on that, we saw some of that direct traffic was fueled by some of the bot traffic that came from, unfortunately, bots. And so we looked at that and said, okay, people aren't going to visit carsoncity.com/subpage, so we can assume that that is going to be bot traffic. Your referrals, really great to see that you do have some wonderful local partners at carson.org, BT Railway, Comstock Shootout, so your referral traffic definitely made sense. But there is the opportunity to add more tracking when the new site launches. And so we want to be able to show how much traffic we are sending your local stakeholders, so your restaurants, your hotels, your other lodging partners, to show how the overall performance of the site is producing more web traffic that's converting.
Yeah, I think to give a slight narrative on here, when we talk about engagement, that pages per session, we want to try and encourage people to visit more pages every time they come to the website. And that bounce rate at 68 is, like Andy said, it's fairly high. So that tends to be somebody who comes to one page on your website and then leaves. I'm not sure the sophistication level up there, but I just wanted to clarify those. Okay, perfect. Perfect. So yeah, bounce is simply if you come to a website and you only visit the page that you landed on, and then you leave. That is considered a bounce. And of course, we don't want that. We want somebody to come to our site and then be encouraged to visit more pages across the website. So that's what we're talking about with engagement.
And I would just segue to the next slide. At times it's okay to have a high bounce rate. When you're going to your blog content, that would make sense. Mm-hmm. However, let's talk about what people are, in the next slide, what people are visiting. Currently, the snapshot of the people that are going to, and this is information that is provided by Google, 46% is coming from mobile traffic. That is leading desktop by, I want to say, roughly 1%. So not a huge difference, but enough to show that mobile is leading the way. Again, comparing with other destinations, we'd rather probably see that closer to 50%, and then that gap between mobile and desktop a bit higher, because we're capturing people in this dreaming stage that they're looking for places to vacation, and generally they're doing that on a mobile device. What I found really interesting, which the thing that we were learning from basically our interviews and then our survey, and then the web also then basically showed that assumption, is that we do have a older demographic visiting the website. And so even though it shows 55 to 64 as your leading age demographic, roughly that third level from the 25 to 34, the 35 to 44, and the 55 to 64, that's a roughly about a 3% difference in between. But to my knowledge, or to my experience, I haven't seen 55 to 64 and 65 plus be at as high as it is with the current site. So there are a lot of people coming in, they're looking at the site, they're looking for things to do, but generally that is an older demographic. From your top cities, roughly about 15,000 is coming from Carson City, and that could be a good thing. And so those are people that could be in destination that are looking for things to do, but it also does show that there are a lot of locals who are currently using the site. Your second biggest target, which I think is good, is Sacramento, and that's something that we want to continue to push. San Francisco is your third, but roughly and very close behind is Reno. I'd like to see Reno a little bit up. I'd just say San Francisco is third, probably just because of how many people live in San Francisco, but I'd still like to see Reno up there on mainly in the top three. With San Jose, there is a sharp decline from your next largest city, and that's roughly about 3,000. So there could be potential there, but we'll see as we're moving along how we can help be able to grow that.
So,
Go ahead.
so is the high bounce rate, is that a condition of our website? And is it also part of our demographic? That, as you politely put it, maybe we're not as sophisticated.
So, Rob Gadke for the record. So it is a vast array of elements that go into those factors. But I would say that the leading causes tend to be content. So how much content do we have, and how much content are we promoting on different pages of the website? So when you land on a page, is it easy to get to another page? In the content, in the story that you're reading, do we encourage users to click on something else to get more? Right, that is the main driver in a bounce rate. You'll also see high bounce rates in organizations that will run promotions or contests. We tend to see those. I haven't seen a lot of that happening, but that is another pretty large factor. Same with high paid traffic. So if you are buying traffic for the website, if you're buying sort of unengaged, or maybe the correlation to your content versus your advertisement isn't in sync, we'll see high bounce rates as well.
How are you using like metropolitan statistical area to define San Jose, Sacramento, San Jose? Like, does Sacramento include Modesto, or would that be secondary? Would it be separate?
Yeah, very good question. So it's really how Google really will help define those cities. So generally what happens is the city will grow, and then they'll realize that, oh, for example, like let's say West Sacramento deserves its own. And so then it'll split off. But essentially it is specifically the city. So within San Francisco, obviously there's a lot of suburbs that are coming out of there. If the cities are small enough, my assumption is that it'll consume that San Francisco area. But as they grow bigger, then it'll break off in its own separate city.
Yeah, the Google DMAs are pretty spot on, and they stay fairly current. I think the other factor in there is that when you get into some of the bigger markets, San Francisco in particular, and San Jose, just because of their technical infrastructure, you do start to get some people who are browsing on a internal network that is from a different city. So there are some crossovers, and we take this data with a little bit of a caveat, but it is fairly specific and contained. Yeah.
So San Jose seems really low. Has our marketing efforts been in that area, or we've been really hitting more like Sacramento and San Francisco?
We are just starting to hit more into San Jose on a digital effort. And previous to that, I didn't see a lot that I could find that really went beyond Sacramento, really. So San Francisco was kind of just a natural transition of people I think, coming from some of the other digital efforts before too, and targeting some events, but it's been pretty little. So I actually have been seeing that grow in the on our social channels. So we're just it's not a great experience yet from our social channels to the website, and we are getting that bounce rate. So I think that we should anticipate that growing pretty quickly.
All right, so talking about the content, what I like to see is where people are coming in from the organic side and seeing which landing pages that they're going to first. And so the first one is the homepage, which seems pretty normal. However, again, I would love, or we would love to even see some of your sub pages being that first page. So having things to do, eventually becoming the lead traffic driver would be wonderful, because that shows that you have an intent, that when people are coming to the site, that they're looking for things to do. So I think that will also help reduce the bounce rate, because when people have a specific thing that they're looking for and they go to things to do, they see a wonderful user experience, they find what they're looking for, and then they move on. But to go along with what's currently happening, homepage is first, things to do is second, and that's pretty normal. Kings Canyon Waterfall I thought was interesting because that was third. So people are really interested in things that are out here from the natural side, from the natural beauty side. Your Nevada Day page is 4, and then people are looking specifically for the Capitol building and trying to find more information around there. Virginia City being 6th, I think it's, when people are looking for Carson City or they're looking for Virginia City, they're coming to the site to learn about that. So that could also show a bit of opportunity on how we want to be able to help build that relationship, and also be able to show, as people are going through Virginia City, the places that they should visit for while they're in Carson City. The events page being 7, I actually feel that there's an opportunity with this next iteration to have that be one of your top 5 pages. I think that's pretty normal with other destinations, is events should be leading the way to highlight some of the great events that you do host. History being number 8, that is generally just a very, very large page on the site. So I think from an organic side, there's a lot of great content, but I think from an opportunity side, branching that out and showing specifically why coming to Carson City, as for things like Mark Twain and Kit Carson and other things, could be a great way to help drive people that are specifically looking for something. From the top search queries, what we do is we have branded keywords and non-branded keywords. So branded keywords is everything within Carson City. So Carson City Things to Do, Carson City Wine Walk, Carson City Polar Express. However, non-branded keywords I find really interesting, because those are things that have Carson City removed that people are still getting to the site. So Virginia City, Nevada State Capitol with an O, so looking for the building, Kit Carson Trail, and Kings Canyon Waterfall is where you're currently ranking well for.
Where does Capitol with an A fall out?
Good question.
What do you get if you put that in?
It didn't show up as at least the top 4, but that is something we should absolutely be the number 1 rank for. Yeah. So I think that we need to build more of a presence for that, and that will show all the great stuff from the State Museum to what just walking around the governor's mansion could be like.
Yeah, it's an interesting game when we get into spellings and whether it's a brand perception. Sometimes we don't want to address them, sometimes we do.
Yeah, because I'm not sure most people know the difference between capital with an A or capital with an O.
Yep.
I had to look it up. From the social side, so I thought this was really neat. So what this is that shows the top posts that have happened over the course of the quarter, and everything was different, which was really great to see. So from the Facebook side, it was shots of the beauty around springtime. From Instagram, it was a great shot of a rainy day and then the rainbow that was around the Carson City sign. And then the third shot on Twitter was really the beauty of the sunrise coming up in Tahoe. But it's also great to see the connection points of seeing that this is the outdoor beauty that Carson City has to offer in its surrounding areas. So it was great to see, and I think as we're moving along, it'll be good to see seasonality if there's some things that people are currently connecting with, and what type of content that does go from that may be the same on Instagram that generates the same on Facebook as the leading, which we've seen before. So, but this was cool just because there's a lot of great stuff happening in the springtime, and this really highlighted that. Going a little bit deeper on our social audit, the team is really doing a wonderful job of keeping your content updated consistently, really showing the different channels and making sure that there's a presence there. And then if we look at it individually, Facebook is your fastest growing channel, has wonderful diverse content, but the majority of people that are following on Facebook lives in Carson City. Now, it probably does start with Carson City, so it's going to be them being able to share all the great content that you're currently producing, because people in Carson City also have people outside of Carson City that are going to be connected to them that hopefully will then lead into a visitor. On Instagram, again, the feed is beautiful. There's high quality content, but there's a huge opportunity to get other people to help highlight their own content. So this is the user generated content side. And for people using hashtags with Carson City and building a lot more people on reasons why to take selfies around Carson City, I think that definitely is an opportunity that we should continue to push for other people to post their content on Instagram. With Twitter, great overall content. Organic impressions were very high, but when we looked at what people were engaging with the most, it was a lot of retweeted content from Travel Nevada and other sources. And then with YouTube, there was a video for your winter series, which was performed extremely well, but we need to get more video out there, and it needs to be tourist-driven content. So it was the winter video that I think was published maybe 6 months ago, had tens of thousands of views, so we need more content like that.
So to kind of, again, lay a recap here, I think when we come into a destination, we kind of fall in a few different buckets. We either fall in starting from scratch and we have nothing to go on. We fall in this sort of stage where we have great content and it's our job now to help enhance that. And then we have others where it's total optimization. And I think the beauty of where you stand today is that you do have some volume, right, that we can capitalize on and learn from. We do have a solid social foundation, again, something that we can capitalize on and grow on. So, I think that the groundwork has been started. There's a nice base, and now all of the efforts that we do can just further enhance all of that. So I think it's a great place to be in as an organization.
Mm-hmm. So moving into the interview side, so this is leaning on more of the qualitative feedback, and this is just a short snapshot on the things that we were able to learn, but we did interview people from the lodging side to local business owners to the mayor. And so it was great just to hear the perspective of what's working. And so what we mainly saw as a pattern across all the information that we were able to gather is really Carson City has a wonderful, rich history. And it sounds as if sometimes that I think that once you know about the history, you can get tired of it because you are local, you've heard the stories before, but also just renewing that is something that I feel as if that is a wonderful opportunity, so there I think that's something that we want to continue to explore to be able to drive people for the historical perspective. The heritage and cultural influence, that is, I would say, really exciting and new. I mean, the ability to really focus on the arts, the wonderful even art that's going from the Basque sheep herders is great to see. And the ability for us to be able to help promote the cultural side and to embrace it is, I'm really excited to see how that continually develops over the course of the next few years. It was interesting because we would always ask, what's the one thing that people take away when they come and visit here? And it was consistently the people. So the friendliness, the charm, the hospitality, that was something that Carson City offered. And from a local perspective, that was something that was mentioned that was a differentiator, in terms of looking and comparing against Reno, comparing against Tahoe. Carson City, really the people is something that the friendliness is something to be identified with. The fourth one, forward thinking. It was great to hear that you are willing to close down Carson Street for a major event, that you embrace tourism, you see the benefits of tourism. And so you being forward thinking, understanding, and having a vision was great to see. The state capital pride, That was also no one can take that away from you. No one else is the state capital here. And so there's a lot of pride around that. And it was also braced with the charm and hospitality that you could go to the governor's mansion and walk right in and have a conversation. And a lot of places you can't do that. And so that was a really neat perspective to be able to understand. The clean and walking friendly downtown. So as the downtown area is still being revitalized and continually improving, that was a great thing to see. There was one person who had mentioned that they bring in comedians and they're from out of state, and 3 or 4 of them had mentioned that, wow, your guys' downtown is really clean. It's really refreshing to hear that and to see that. And so that was a great thing to also see and identify with. And then the ability to room to play and wander. There was a lot of sports tournaments that really did translate into heads and beds. And so that was great to see as you do have the facilities to be able to accommodate that. And then the ability to wander with the trail systems. And that was refreshing to see because there are new trails out there. So really that's where the room to play and wander came in. So from there, we also had a survey that went out, and this again was major stakeholders, and we got about 30 responses. And we've identified really with the Carson City visitor as 2 targets. So we have this older demographic that's really here for history. They love the trains, they love the history, they love learning about really what made Nevada when they're here. So that was, I think, probably someone that we already see. The other one was the families. They're here for the sports, they're here from the tournaments, and really it's how do we get those people to stay perhaps another day to be able to enjoy the local area. And so that seemed to be quite a bit of something that we'd want to be able to focus on because we want to have more tournaments like that. The Carson City's key offerings. So I have bolded here the histories and museums in the state capitol because that is a differentiator. That is something that people, even though they do say that people are one of the strongest one of the strengths here, that history and museums and state capitol is the reasons why they may come here. So the other elements of what makes Carson City who it is today are the sports facilities, the train rides, the outdoor and scenery, and then the location to other areas. The hub was consistently mentioned as, we're 30 minutes away from Reno, we're 30 minutes away from South Lake, we're 30 minutes away from Virginia City. So can people come down here and then mainly stay here and then go to these other areas? And when we identified and said, well, name and give us one adjective to tell us what you think Carson City represents, historic, quaint, and friendly was the pattern that we saw across the 30 different individuals that responded. The other question that we like to ask is, if Carson City were a car, what kind of car would they be? And this one's just more fun, but it gives an idea of what people basically symbolize Carson City with. And so we did get answers that were very modern. We did get answers that were very old. But what was interesting is that I think about 4 or 5 people consistently said a Ford Mustang, basically a 1960s Ford Mustang. And I think there's a lot of things that we embody that are very similar. We are old, but we're classy. We are stylish. There is something that is sleek and sexy about us, but we do still have this wonderful history that we can definitely pin and point people over to. Cool. All right. So this next part is there are obstacles to overcome, and these are things that we were able to pull from the interviews and pull from the surveys that we do have to just acknowledge because that is something that is going to be continual with our visitors. So the number one was that we are a pass-through city. And so travelers generally will start in Tahoe. We had a term that was called Tahoe or lake fever. And generally what happens is that they've been up the lake a few days and they're now looking at other things that they want to go explore. So they then discover Virginia City and they're going through Carson City maybe to eat, maybe to grab a coffee, but they're just passing through. They're not actually staying here. So the opportunity is really how do we be able to get people to either use us as the hub or how do we get them to stay longer? How do we get them to enjoy the capital? There isn't a commercial airport as number 2, and that is, that's also a problem for Tahoe. However, there are things that people identify with the airport, especially when your Nevada experience starts here. So we'll talk about this as that came up from a physical standpoint is that their journey cannot physically start here if they come in from via air. So it definitely can go if they're driving through, but if they're coming in from Reno, people were thinking to themselves, well, if Nevada journey starts here, Nevada experience starts here, it actually starts in Reno, but then they have to drive 30 minutes to Reno or to Carson City to then start their experience. So having no commercial airport really emphasized that a bit more because they really couldn't start physically in Carson City. Other than the state capital, there's no defined single reason to come to Carson City. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't multiple reasons and that, for example, the art is a reason to come, the river is the reason to come, the waterfall is a reason to come, the hot springs are a reason to come, but it's not the single reason to come. And so when we're looking at it from, let's say, the lake in Lake Tahoe is the reason to come. It could be the nightlife in Reno is the reason to come. But Carson City really has that state capital, and so we do need other areas that I think we have an opportunity to identify with that could be another single reason to come. The aging audience, obviously, that is going to be a concern because the aging audience isn't getting any younger. And then as long as we're targeting a younger audience, the town closes at 6 p.m. So yes, we're definitely here targeted for an aging audience, but if we want to be able to be open to a younger audience, then we probably need a little bit more of a nightlife here. And then the last point, outdoor isn't a unique selling point. And I think that one really stood out. And then one person or a couple of people mentioned that part hasn't necessarily translated yet where they've seen an ROI on room nights. Now, the trail system is beautiful, it's new, it's great. But I do think that if we continue to push the trail system, that we need to pinpoint a unique piece that will show that, the reasons that Lake Tahoe is great, but ours are better. And how we do that, we will need to have something that is very unique to show and highlight. And so I think that, some of the things that we talked about is, for example, like it could be more historical. It could be the Pony Express. There are ways in perspective that we can do. But, there is a lot of wonderful, amazing trails, including the PCT that's out there that we just need to be okay with that other people are going to specifically travel on that. And hopefully we can also pull them over to our trails as well.
Yeah, I think, when we talk about these obstacles, number one, it makes our job fun, right? Because we need to find a way to overcome all of these. But what I'd love, even just from this room right now as a gut reaction is any commentary on this. Do some of these feel like they're not obstacles? Is there anything that stands out? I'd love a discussion here if you have any thoughts here.
No, I think you're spot on, so especially the aging audience and the town closes at 6. Sometimes I notice we have events downtown where we have thousands of people and stores are closed. That's got to change for us to be successful. We do a good job of driving people down there and then don't deliver sometimes.
Yeah.
I've heard. I don't know that I necessarily agree with the outdoor isn't a unique selling point. I mean, everyone has outdoors. I get that, and in that sense, you're right. It's not unique. But if you talk to the Epic Ride people, or you talk to the guy that was here presenting today, he says that what we do have is unique, and I've heard that when I volunteered at Epic Rides. And admittedly was at the beer tent, so maybe people were a little, but still, the comments are that it is a very unique place to ride because of the varied terrain, because of the views, because of the vistas. I think we have the ability to sell that we are a unique place to ride because of that, because of the vastness of trails that we have in a very concentrated area. Carson City has almost 11 square miles of open space within our community. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find a community of our size that has that much open space. Not all of it is trails, but it is open space. And I think finally that maybe from an organized sporting event, and I get that that's different from this, but if you talk to the people who participate in organized sporting events, whether it be soccer or a swimming event, that we've got, I don't know, I'd go so far as to say world-class venues, but certainly on the good to excellent side in terms of venues. So I wouldn't use the term world-class, and I know you probably don't want to put in a marketing brochure, we have really good swimming pool, but I just don't want you to overlook, those things. And I think finally, not many governments have a piece of Lake Tahoe. And I don't think we should forget that we have a piece of Lake Tahoe in Carson City. There are a couple of hiking trails, there are a couple of beaches that are accessible within Carson City. Now, you can't stay there, but you can stay here and go there. So I don't think we should forget that, because there's only 5 counties that touch Lake Tahoe, and we're one of them. So I don't think we should forget that. And I think people do often forget that we have that part. In fact, I would like to see a search engine bring up Carson City when you put in Lake Tahoe. Because, we're part of it. So.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that feedback. It's always nice to get it live.
And because it is unique, I think the
I got
ability
one
to
more
help grow
comment.
that.
I really think we are a hub to recreation. I mean, we, the pool is one thing, we got the softball, but we got great golf. I mean, we've got some beautiful golf courses in this, just in this town. Affordable golf courses, that I think is overlooked. And I'm hoping that as you guys do more of your job, what you do, that you're gonna be able to start really pulling out some of those types of things, because really, we Carson City is a hub for recreation.
Well, thanks for bringing that up, because I was thinking of that when you were talking about that we appeal to that 55-plus demographic, which a lot of us are in. I'm not pointing fingers, but and I think that demographic is a lot of people in that demographic take advantage of golf. So I think, it's a natural match there to, if we excel in terms of visitors in that category, that we push that golf component. So it's a good point. Thank you.
Awesome.
Can I jump in for just a second? So, and I don't want to get ahead of these guys, but the next phase of the research that we're doing is with the consumer, past visitors, potential visitors, where we're actually assessing perceptions, their understanding of golf courses, the museums, the lake. So we are definitely going to get into these very things to understand, does the visitor, a past visitor, potential visitor, somebody that maybe just inquired about having, wanting to come here to Carson City, do they even know that we have these things? And I think we're going to find, I've found this to be the case on the state level with rural destinations, people just don't know. They need to be educated about what we do have here, because I have to say, I've done a lot of dirt biking, not as much mountain biking out in the Pine Nuts, and I find it to be incredible when you can look back east at the Sierras covered in snow and you're out there on a dirt bike any time of the year almost. But most people don't even know about what's on the eastern side of Carson City County, and you can go out there and do your mountain biking or gravel bikes or dirt bikes or ATVs or whatever. So we definitely are going to get into this with the consumer research. And that will be releasing later this week, fingers crossed, to about 15,000 plus people that we have in our database to get at exactly these very issues that we're talking about right now.
And I agree. I mean, the opportunity for hiking, I've seen that work for other places as well. And generally, I remember it was a top 6 hiking places in that destination, and it was generally one of the top 3 pages. So as we saw earlier, I think with Carlos's presentation, seeing some of the cool cars that are going by, like that is a selling point. Not many people are showing that. And so I think that's the thing that we'll be working with the team to be able to help highlight that uniqueness.
And I think that older demographic too are more active these days. And I think we can promote that with our outdoors and, what we have here in Carson City. So I think that could be used too, because some of the most competitive people I've been around have been the older people. And so I think that could be used.
Anybody in
Trying to
particular?
say.
Yeah, it's you idea.
And then this last slide really goes on more the branding of the organization. So with one of the questions was talking about the logo, the current logo that's out there, and 2/3 felt that the logo did represent Carson City. They like the state color, they like the mountains, they like the stars, the capital. On the other side, there's always going to be someone who doesn't like the logo. Others felt that it didn't say much. It was too basic and it looked like Texas because of the star. Your Nevada experience starts here, so really the question was, do you understand it? And generally people did. They felt that was the first stop anyone should make when they're in Nevada. That Carson City is the capital and that we have history here and that we are the hub. But others did not share the same enthusiasm. We already talked about the airport side, that it didn't physically make sense to them. It sounds like gaming. I thought that was an interesting quote. Generic and could be used anywhere, even though it has Nevada in it. And then it doesn't resonate with them. So I think it's always good just to kind of see the other side of what people are thinking as well. Then from the agency name, so we did ask what would basically a tourism agency in Carson City, what that should be called. And 35% liked Visit Carson City. And then right behind it was the Carson City Culture and Tourism Authority. And so that could have also been, a lot of people may have already been aware that it's the Carson City Culture and Tourism Authority. But those two were definitely the ones that were voted for the most on those.
All right, so to wrap things up here, basically what we need to do is roll up all of this info from the consumer survey as well. And what we do is we put together a guiding principles document. This is our strategic foundation that represents our framework for doing anything in the future. So we have that piece to finalize. Again, what that does is it establishes our direction. Where are we going? What are we talking about when we talk about Carson City? It sets the voice and tone. I think that was another interesting one. And these are elements that you can't really get from any surveys. What we need to do is we need to talk to people, we need to experience it here and find our own tone. And I think that is something that we are starting to define quite well at our agency now. We're starting to understand what your voice actually is. And it's really critical in making sure that our advertisements and our website mirror what the consumer is going to experience here. It also builds our creative direction. So on the right-hand side, we set visual styles and moods. So we'll be building those out here shortly, and then building the entire architecture of the new website. What are we focusing on? What are the key landing pages that we want to drive visitors to? And then how do we move them across the website in a very fluid manner? So those are coming up on board. And then like Chrissy mentioned, our comms plan, our communication plan, that is coming up as well. But ultimately, like I mentioned in the beginning, these set the foundation. It's a lot of upfront work, and then we get to release and run fast. So we do feel very confident in all of our timelines and deliveries. So launching Jan 1 is not something that we are at all worried about, as well as delivering on our comms plan coming up here soon. So that's the end of our presentation, and I'll open it up to comments.
Any comments from the board, other than, well, thanks, Rob and your team. I think we're off to a good start. You mentioned earlier, it's a foundation that you have to build, and hopefully we'll, by the end of the year, the website and everything else coming our way, be off to a good start. And we'll be able to promote our almost world-class pool. So it's getting there.
And our aging visitors.
Hey, they have more money, right?
We're all, we're passionate about, all of us have different ideas of why Carson City is a wonderful place. So that's a good thing that we're passionate about. So thank you.
Well, and Mike is performing nightly at the at his hotel in the comedy club. Right?
Awesome. He's going to keep it open. All right.
Yeah, till 6:30.
6:30. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, you guys. Thank you.
Next agenda item, possible action, discussion, and possible action regarding a proposed memorandum of understanding, MOU, to extend the first amended cooperative agreement for administrative services and facility use and management between Carson City and the Carson City Culture Tourism Authority, dated March 1st, 2018, for a period of 60 days. And David, I don't know if how much needs to be discussed, other than we're going to take some more time going over the agreement, making sure we have all our i's dotted and t's crossed. And that should take, hopefully, maybe not 2 months, but if you have any more to add on that, or anyone on the board would like discussion.
I don't have anything else to add. Just going to reformat the document, and Ben has been put in charge of doing so. With not having a July meeting, the plan is to bring it back at our August meeting, and then it will move forward to the next Board of Supervisors, I believe, the third week of August, if all goes well. That's the plan. But I don't have anything else to add, yeah. Just extending the current terms and conditions of the current interlocal through the 29th of August.
Can I ask, is it possible, Ben, since a member of the board had it pulled, to get it to the board before it comes here?
Do you
Or does
mean,
that, go ahead.
Ben Johnson, Deputy District Attorney for the record, do you mean that you want it to go to a meeting first, or just to be circulated to members of the board? Or those that had concerns?
I think it would be, I think you're going to share it anyway with those that have concerns. But I'm wondering if it wouldn't be better to have the Board of Supervisors approve it first, or is there a reason that CTA should approve it first?
As far as the order goes, I think generally the practice is that things end at the Board of Supervisors. I don't think that there's an official city policy that requires it that way, because, the city enters in agreements with, say, the state of Nevada, and of course, the Board of Examiners would be the final approver there. So I think it's just deference to the Board of Supervisors, but legally speaking, it doesn't matter what order it's presented in, so I don't have a problem with it, assuming that we're within the timeframes, it going to the Board of Supervisors
It's
first.
probably fine the other way. I'll just, use your judgment. I think you'll know as you start discussing it with the board members that whether you think there's going to be an issue or not. And to me, if there's going to be an issue, it would be better to have the board approve it, then come back here. But if you think you've got those issues ironed out, then I'd agree with you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
I just don't want to delay it, is what I'm trying to do, any more than we have to.
No, I agree, as long as if there are issues, they're brought to this board, so they can be hashed out.
Okay. I move to approve the MOU as presented.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Off to item 10, discussion and possible action regarding CTA statement of accounts, payable checks, and P-card report for 2019. Chris, or is this David?
It'll be Dave. Chair Jones, for the record, so in your packets, you have the account activity statement for the accounts payable checks totaling $43,761.80, and P-card purchases totaling $12,360.65 for the month of April 2019. Given where we're at in time, do you wish for me to go through, or should I'd be happy to entertain any questions about any particular charges.
I think if anyone has any questions, we can move through it fairly quickly, unless there's some concerns.
I just have a question here. I believe it was last month when we sat down together with Conica, and we had gone through the contract line by line, and we discovered about the late charges due to the way that the bill gets processed by the time it goes through our needs, and they were going to look into ways of changing that, one of which was they were going to email Chris as soon as that bill gets released. But they were hoping to go back and try to reverse some of those late fees. Did they get back to us on that?
We haven't heard anything back on the late fees yet.
But we're not taking our foot off the gas either. So Chris is continuing to have conversations with them. One about, yes, the emailing of the invoices in lieu of sending it through the post office. Two, looking at, can we extend out to like a net 45 or a net 60, and just change the terms so those late fees don't automatically come on with each of the bills. And then we're still also working on the overall credit itself, the $17,400 and some dollars worth of credit, to try to get that so we can put that back into this current fiscal year 19. So we think it's at the last person or something that has to ultimately approve that check physically being sent to us. But yeah, we're still working with them, and we will come to some sort of an agreement on getting a credit back on all of those late charges, just given the circumstances around our billing processes as well as theirs as well, so.
The credit, what'd you say,
I think it's
was that for the
$17,460.
error in billing?
Yes.
On color versus black and white?
So
Okay.
that has to do, with the inversion of the way that the lease is set up, and they flip the black and white with the color charges. Through the process, and thanks to Member Riggs for sitting down with us and the Conica Minolta people, we've learned about an issue in terms of the timing from when we get the invoices from them and through the mail, and by the time the check is cut and it arrives, in their account, so to speak, we're not meeting the terms of the lease, so therefore there have been late fees almost every month associated with us making the payment. And so we're working with them, as Member Riggs said, to get those late fees reimbursed to us as well. So that'll be another credit that we'll be talking about moving forward.
Can we switch to paying them by P card so that it is faster? They won't accept P card payments?
They, for the record, Dave Peterson, they will not accept a credit card payment, no.
Any other questions regarding the P card statement? Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
CT. Okay.
I guess, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. On to item 11, discussion and possible action regarding the adjusted CTA fiscal year 19 budget report. David?
Thank you, Chair Jones. In your packet, you have a comparative statement of the adjusted revenue totaling $1,634,826.55, expenses totaling $1,456,926.69, and a fund balance for all CTA funds totaling $1,804,506.86. So I'll just hit a couple of the highlights in the report. If you turn to the first full page of the report, this is the 10th accounting period that we're reporting through on the expenditure side, so that's through April. And on the revenue side, these are all remittances received through March as physical business activity month. So remember, the expenses are 1 month ahead of the revenue collection. So we're 83% through the fiscal year. We're tracking on the revenue side. If you look up top at the CCCTA room tax, just under 77% relative to the fiscal year so far. So we feel pretty good that we'll come out a little bit ahead of the original projection in terms of the lodging tax projections for fiscal 19. So on the revenue side, in total, we're at 76.1%, which you see in yellow, I think. Well, on mine yellow, but just hitting the highlights real quick on the interlocals. That's the first payment that's for the 2% agreement, and then again, the payments that fund the Arts and Culture Department, those are done on a monthly basis, so that's why you see those that 135 tracking ahead. The $155,000, just as a reminder, that was the $65,000 payment plus the additional $90,000 that you as the board approved for the improvements up at the Eastgate Depot. And then if you'll turn to the third page, you'll see under office equipment, rental, and lease. This number went down from the prior month, and the reason for that is we moved the overages, the charges, out of this particular GL, and we moved those under printing and advertising, so we properly accounted for those costs accordingly. So you see the $45,130.50 actual, and that reflects those changes and adjustments that Chris was able to do since our last meeting. With that, if there are any questions on this report, I'm happy to entertain them at this time.
Hearing no questions or concerns, can I get a motion to approve?
I move to approve the adjusted fiscal year 19 budget report as presented through April 30th, 2019.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Item 12, discussion and possible action regarding a proposed resolution to augment fiscal year 2018-2019 budget. David?
Thank you, Chair Jones. So in your packets, you have the augmentation, budget augmentation for fiscal year 18-19. And this is to augment the general fund in the amount of $45,585, to augment the capital projects fund in the amount of $40,429, and to augment the V&T capital project fund in the amount of $105,860. So I'll just hit some highlights, and then if there are any questions. So just as a reminder, on page 2 of 16, and I'm going off of the footer, you'll see the $45,585. That's broken down by the difference in the actual beginning fund balance for fiscal 19, the projected increase in room tax revenue. We also, on the intergovernmental revenue side, trued up the grants that we received from the Nevada Commission on Tourism. And then the last two are the miscellaneous income, which is basically the interest income that's accounted for. And then because we're projecting a slight increase in the room tax revenue, that also bumps up that transfer in from the V&T capital project fund as well. So that's just some highlights that make up the $45,585 increase in the general fund. And that's highlighted if you turn to page 3. Again, as I mentioned, the grants, the interest, and then the transfer in, it's just laid out. Page 4 of 16, again, Chris did an amazing job with the beginning fund balance in terms of what was estimated versus the actual after the audit. She was only off by $138, which I think is fantastic, although Mr. Santos had suggested it should have been under $100. He would have felt better about it, so she's going to try harder for fiscal 20, so.
Way to go, Mike.
Page 5, I'll just mention on the intergovernmental expense, just as a reminder, that includes the cooperative agreement, which is the 2%, plus the field maintenance transfer, plus what we pay to the Commission on Tourism, so the 3/8 of 1% that funds the Nevada Division of Tourism. So you'll see the revision there in the amount of $38,586. That's on page 5. I'll skip ahead to page 7. The adjustments here in terms of the beginning fund balance, $35,770. For the capital projects fund. My apologies. On page 7, so we have the adjustment from the actual beginning fund balance, a little over $35,000. The increase, the share for the room tax revenue, as well as the interest income, and so that total is the $40,429 I previously mentioned. And the breakdown is accordingly on page 8. And then I'll just bump ahead to page 12 of 16, again, on the footer, to the V&T Capital Projects Fund, and that shows the breakdown of the $100,250 and the additional room tax revenue, as well as the interest income, just over $2,000, and that equals the total $105,860 I previously mentioned. So with that, I guess the last thing I'll just, as a reminder, page 16 of 16, so that $155,000, again, that's the annual payment to bring the balance down on the bond, plus that $90,000 that the board approved to make the improvements up at the Eastgate Depot. So it's the only thing I was going to highlight on that particular page. So with that, happy to address any questions related to the augmentation for fiscal 18-19.
Questions? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve?
I'll do it. I move to approve the resolution to augment fiscal year 18-19 budget as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. On to non-monthly action items. David, do you want to start with the executive update?
Thank you, Chair Jones. And I'll be brief. There's just two things that I wanted to bring the board up to speed on. If you recall, the team, they did an amazing job of putting together 13 grant recommendations back in April that we submitted to the Nevada Commission on Tourism for their consideration. I'm very pleased to say that we received funding on 8 of those projects in the total of $52,000, and I'll go through them real quick. We received money for video content creation, which I think, as you heard here, is critical to everything that we're going to be doing. Digital and social media strategy development, digital advertising, paid social media advertising, influencer marketing, campaign efforts, print advertising, brochure printing and distribution. And I'm also super excited, and I think Trish, you'll be happy to know that we did receive funding for 2 trade shows. So NTA and Go West Summit, which I'm excited. So James and I will be able to attend both of those, and I think it's a great opportunity because they're both coming to Northern Nevada in the next few years. So I think creating that awareness, that buzz, hey, we're here, we're Carson City. My hope is that we'll be a part of the pre and the post FAMs for both of those conferences. So I'm excited about that. The second thing I wanted to
What didn't we get?
What didn't we get?
You know, I hate to focus on the negative, but it's
just
just
happened.
nice to know.
Yeah, so we did not get money for a lodging study, and that would be to aggregate all of the data from the different properties on their customers, again, to really hone in on exactly where these folks are coming from. A little different than the profile data that we obviously get from the state. So we didn't receive money for that. We did not receive money for the FAM tours either. We did not receive money for Carlos, the event that we just talked about and approved. We didn't receive money for special events marketing or participation at IPW in Las Vegas next summer in 2020. So, and I will say this, they received 200, they being Commission on Tourism, 205 total applications. There was just over $1 million available. The total for the applications was almost $1.8 million. So the reality is they just couldn't fund everything. But I will also add that from an individual DMO basis, we received more money than any other DMO as an individual. So I still think we did pretty well. And we have the second cycle coming up, so we have a little bit of a break, about 4 weeks before we start working on the second cycle grant applications. And the team, we actually have already identified about 5 or 6 grants that we'll be applying for in the second cycle for the rural marketing grants. So I do feel pretty good in terms of the way we put our budget together. We estimated about $70,000 in grants, and I think we'll meet or exceed that. So, yeah. So that's just a quick breakdown, what we did get, what we didn't get. And then on the international front, on June 8th, I'm super pleased that we were able to be a part of the Reno Sparks Convention and Visitor Authority's Chinese Tour Operator and Travel Agent FAM. So we were over at the Capitol. Woody Davis did an amazing job as our tour guide over there, touring the entire Capitol and the Battleborn Hall exhibit. We actually were over there for well over an hour, so much so that it cut into our time at the Nevada State Museum with Myron and his folks. But we did come back over and we were able to show them the Chinese woodcutter exhibit, which I thought was great. So we had travel agents and tour operators from the Zhejiang Everbright Bravo International Travel Company Limited, Shanghai CYTS Tours Limited, and the Galaxy Tour Shanghai, in addition to the RSCVA's rep firm, PHG Consulting. So that was, I think, very successful because, again, we're just getting that awareness out there about, in this case, with the Chinese market. We had another opportunity come along because of IPW and Travel Nevada. So Sylvia Welsh, who handles China, took an appointment with Mr. William Liu, who's the general manager for Ola China Shanghai International Travel Service Company Limited. And he came here to Carson City on the 12th. He did a tour of the State Museum. And then he came back that Friday and stayed overnight in Carson City, which is great, because obviously that's what I really want to see, are these folks staying in Carson City. And he was able to take in a little bit of the Stewart Father's Day powwow before he set off across Highway 50. So we gave him his passport with his Carson City stamp on it, and away he went. And I ended up communicating with him actually all weekend long at the different stops that he was making along his journey on Highway 50. So I think it was a great opportunity again with respect to the Chinese market. And I'm really looking forward to another opportunity that I think will come along in October, again with the RSCVA. They're going to have a very large, it'll be more than just a handful of tour operators and travel agents, but a large-scale FAM that's coming through in October. And we're already in talks about getting Carson City involved with that particular FAM as well. So, and then I'll just say, James and I, we're going to be meeting with the new Director of Sales and Industry Partners at Travel Nevada. They've had some turnover there, and we're going to talk about collaboration on any FAMs that they have coming up in Northern Nevada, to ensure that maybe we can get some room nights, or at the very least, a full morning or a full afternoon in terms of the itinerary that they have in place with some of their upcoming FAMs as well. So with that, that's my Executive Director update and report, and I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Questions from the board? If not, Lydia, marketing update?
Yes, don't worry, it's only a 30-minute presentation. No, I'm just kidding. But I will make it quick because we already talked a lot about our social media and our digital efforts already. But I wanted to highlight and kind of attach along with the grant process, because we are wrapping up this second cycle grant here at the end of this week. And we had a social media grant that was a pretty significant amount that we've been spending over the last 6 months since we received it. And it's made an incredible impact on our digital presence and our social presence. So the numbers that you're seeing in these next few slides are from March 1st until Tuesday of last week. So they're very current. And what you can see is that progression when we really ramped up in February coming into now. This is our followers across all channels. And so on Facebook alone, in the last 3 months, we've gained over 1,000 followers, just based off of the ads that we've been doing, me physically inviting people to like our page, our Instagram follower growth, which is, it's a hard channel to get growth on organically. So the fact that we've even gotten, over almost 400 followers on that in the last 3 months has been a great progression. So in the last 3 months, we've had just about 1,800 followers across all channels total, making our total followers over 14,000 for just Visit Carson City alone. And you can see that growth is up in the comparison to the other 3 months, about 67%. So I'm very pleased with that. And then you can see our impressions total since then are almost 1.8 million across all channels. And we've been working really, really hard and working with some consulting agencies, a woman named Andrea, who's incredible, and she really gave me some great insight to maximize those dollars. So we weren't, we really had a strategy behind spending that money. So you can see we were up going close to 300% in comparison to those first 3 months. And then engagement, and that engagement means that these are people actually liking, commenting, sharing our posts. Like, these are the people who really matter, who are actually taking action on the page. And so you can see those total engagements are almost 30,000. A lot of that's on Facebook due to most of those dollars being spent on Facebook. And then I wanted to highlight the impressions that we were getting, that almost that 1.8, and the difference between organic, which means that these people found us, and then the paid is obviously us paying to find them, and getting some eyes in front of our ads. And so the green is what we did organically, and then the purple showcases how many more people we were able to reach with those dollars instead of, in comparison to not paying that. So on average, we reach about 11,000 people a day. And this is just a quick snapshot of how our social media is driving people to the website. And so I really think it's going to be kind of a disconnected experience until we truly have a website that is more connected with content into what we're pushing. And so that's why we're also seeing that high bounce rate, because we are getting a lot of people going to the website, but they're not exactly connecting with the content, maybe other than in the event page, but maybe they land, at the homepage, or they land on the history and it's really long. And the experience right now can be improved. And so once we get this new website, I think these numbers and our Google Analytics are going to be really incredible. And just to reiterate, some of our most popular DMAs that we're seeing through the paid social media are up here. So it's really mimicking what we're seeing on the digital front, and then also what the KPS3 team went through, and that's San Francisco, LA, Sacramento, Reno, of course, Vegas, Chico, Monterey, Portland, and Phoenix. And we're clearly reaching a lot of others as well, but these were the top. They're not in any particular order because they varied between all the different outlets, but we are getting into different areas that we weren't before. Now we're into the Google advertising. And so our impressions, we were going pretty hard with the Google advertising. Once we realized that the experience when they were getting to the website wasn't as good as we thought, we really pulled back those dollars so we could spend them more wisely when we do have that website. So I'm okay with that strategy, because I think otherwise it's just dollars being spent to get them to the site and they're not spending any time there. So we're still getting a lot of people searching for Carson City and finding those people and getting those Google advertisements in front of them. And we're seeing about 387,000 impressions on that front and almost 7,000 people clicking through on that. And I'm excited to talk about this influencer fam that came in last weekend. So this was also a grant funded project that I'm just incredibly grateful for Travel Nevada, because this is a project that I think is really going to have a lot of content that's going to be built into the new website. And we had an incredible group of people come through that truly raved about their experience in Carson City. And I have a testimonial that I'm going to read to you, but to give you the highlights of what we did, we had 5 influencers come in this last weekend to hone in on the message. They were all travel adventure writers and bloggers and influencers that have traveled around the world, all over the place. And we wanted to highlight that you can make Carson City your hub. You can go to the lake for the day, come back, enjoy one of our events, enjoy one of our great restaurants that we have. And I think and with the help of Geography Creative, who did an incredible job building the itinerary and contacting all these influencers and kind of putting this together with us, it just really did create an incredible experience in Carson. So I'm excited to show you the videos when we get those, and even just the Instagram stories that they were posting. They were getting incredible engagement on of people asking, oh, where's that waterfall? It really looked like you had a good time. You could tell you weren't selling it. So the feedback in just the weekend on Instagram alone was really incredible. And we had almost 500,000 followers combined between everyone that came through, which is a hefty amount. So
what was their impression or their feedback directly, the people that were here?
Well, let me read this to you. So Justin Walter is based out of LA. So 2 were based out of LA. One was based out of Montana, who lived in Denver, and now they're moving to LA. And then we had one that came down from the Reno area, because we did want to see, get that perspective of someone who could come from a short distance and stay. And then Laura lives in Truckee, and she's the one who runs Geography Creative, so she helped facilitate and help me run the fam. And then it was myself, so I actually stayed here in Carson City for the weekend to truly make sure that everything went as smoothly as possible, but also get that perspective too, because I think that was really valuable. So we stayed at the Max Casino. That was a great experience. We could walk to downtown, which was really important. And Parks did a really big solid for us and let us use the van for the weekend, which helped us save a lot of money to be able to do more really cool activities. So we really thank them for that. But this email was from Justin Walter, and he sent this to me this morning. I wanted to drop a quick line to say, wow, just wow. I've been going on press trips for the last 3 years to locations all around the world, and hands down, my weekend with Visit Carson City was one of my all-time favorites. Carson City is a special place. It was the perfect small town home base for big time adventure, and I'm beaming today thinking about kayaking on Lake Tahoe, skydiving, the Brewfest, Kings Canyon Waterfall, karaoke, family meals with great combos, the super friendly and welcoming locals, and the list goes on. I can't wait to come back, and I'm so happy I was able to share the magic with my following. I received a message last night with someone saying that, quote, Carson City looked amazing. I could tell you weren't just selling it. The experiences sold themselves, and I'm lucky and blessed to be a face to showcase the gem that is Carson City. Thank you for all the hard work you and Laura put into such a phenomenal trip. I'm a huge fan of Carson City. Heck, I think I may have even bought property there during the Brewfest talking to the locals. looking forward to hopefully working together in the future. Cheers, Justin Walter. And I think that summed up the trip really, really well. I can't tell you how many people stopped and talked to them at the Brewfest, like not knowing that they were from out of town. And the words that I heard all weekend, because I did leave it pretty open, I really wanted this to be an interpretation. I didn't give them a really strong set of like, this is what I want. This is what we, like, I gave them a message that we wanted to share as we're the home base. Please promote that, give the distances to where you're traveling and how easy it was to get back. But I kind of wanted to listen to their interpretations as they came through. And I heard the word quaint a lot, which was consistent with our, with our studies. And then also the people, they just kept raving about the people. And I mean, we did a trip down to the Genoa bar. We met a guy named Rick who took us for a ride in his Model T Ford. It's just that we had the true Nevada experience in every city, including Carson City, and the Brewfest. They genuinely didn't want to leave because they had such great conversations with people, and they just stopped them and had a great time. So that was really just heartwarming and exciting to me that they really truly loved Carson City, and they have traveled around the world, and they said, this was one of the best press trips I had been on because of the experience with the people and the locals, and this town was great. So I wanted to give you that feedback because it was just a great trip. So we did receive a grant for this next cycle for another influencer tour, like David had mentioned, and so this one we get to spread out over the whole year. So we'll have probably not so many in one group, but we'll get to spread out the different seasons too, which I think is going to be great. So any questions on that before I move to the video I have to show you?
Mike, can I just add, Lydia did an amazing job. She's been working on this for weeks, so she's being modest. She was right there with Laura to put this entire project together and lay this all out. And literally hours, dozens of hours she put into this, and it's paid off, quite clearly. So we're going to keep moving on the influencer front because I think there's some great opportunity to take this content and repurpose it, in our printed pieces moving forward on the website. So the investment today pays off really throughout this next fiscal year in the development of what we're doing. But I just want to,
Thank you.
Lydia did an amazing job.
I appreciate
with
that.
This group, so
It was
lots of coordination.
Yeah, it was.
I can barely get out the door some days without knowing where I'm supposed to go, and to coordinate this thing for 5 people in multiple cities, multiple locations, and it shows based on that testimonial from that gentleman. So.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a really fun experience. And we don't have just someone posting, a photo on Instagram. These are blog posts that are going to be coming through, a really incredible video. We've got some drone footage. They really did an incredible job. So I'm excited to share that with you in the future months. And another project in the last of the grants that we were finally wrapping up was our video. We got a small video update grant this last cycle as well. And we had a 60-second, 30-second, 15 and a 10-second video. And we really do need those tourism highlights. And we were really lacking that. And the one that we had was only for winter. So I'm really excited to share with you this video. And let me make sure I've got my sound on. What'd you think? I was really pleased with it too. When you've got it kind of the music going, I just was heartwarming to watch that. I think they really captured our uniqueness and our weirdness, and it was also really fun for them. The Blinky Man ride was happening on Friday night, and so when we walked out of the restaurant, there was a sea of neon bikes, and I think that also really captured the cool community that we have here. So, and then to get this, coming in right after it, I think we have a really solid piece in different formats that I can use throughout social media and commercials and wherever we want to put it. But I think our content's going to be really, really good coming into 2020.
And I noticed just a little bit of jealousy with two of the mics because they noticed that another mic happened to be in that
I know, Mike
video
Jones,
for
you're
all of a
hiding in the
split second.
background in one of these. But yeah, I was really happy with that video. So other than that, that's all I have for you guys. If you have any questions.
Great, thanks. Good job.
Thanks.
Any future agenda items, David, or from the board?
Well, just for the board to know for August, obviously, depending on what happens with the 2% agreement, one way or another, it'll have to come back to us in August. And then we'll also have a new lease for the current facility that we're leasing from the Kaplans as well. So that'll be on the August meeting. And then we hope to have a really good update because we should be through the consumer research if all goes well on the discovery side of things, as was discussed earlier by KPS 3. So we'll be quite a ways along in that process and have another presentation at the August meeting as well, so.
All right, thank you. Just a reminder, no meeting in July. The next meeting will be August 12th. Any board comments or announcements from anyone?
I'd like to make a comment. First of all, I'd like to thank you guys for working so hard on 13 different grants and getting the 8 grants you guys got. I know writing grants is a very difficult task, and so I appreciate your efforts. And Lydia, I really appreciate your enthusiasm for our great community and showcasing it like you do. I can see it in your face and all that hard work, and we really appreciate it as a board. And so keep it up, and anything we can do to support you, we're here for you. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
No, very well said. With that, I'll ask for any more public comment. No, seeing none. You've waited through a long meeting. I just thought you'd give you a chance. So Les, we'll get a motion to adjourn. We're adjourned.
Amen.